It started with a phone call. Emma had just finished her late shift at the diner when her phone buzzed. The screen showed unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello." The voice on the other end was distorted, like it was being filtered through static. It was low, guttural, and it sent a chill down her spine. "They're watching you." The line went dead. Emma stared at her phone, her heart pounding. She told herself it was a prank, but deep down, she knew something was wrong. Emma lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind where everyone knew each other's names. But lately, things felt off. The streets were too quiet, the houses too still. The neighbors, who used to wave and smile, now avoided eye contact. Their faces were blank, their movements stiff, almost mechanical. One evening, as Emma walked home, she noticed something strange. The streetlights flickered, casting long, jagged shadows across the pavement. She could have sworn she saw someone standing at the end of the block, a tall figure in a dark coat, their face obscured. But when she blinked, they were gone. That night, she heard it, a faint tapping at her window. She froze, her breath catching in her throat. The tapping grew louder, more insistent. She pulled the curtains aside, but there was nothing there. Just the empty street and the pale glow of the moon. The next day, Emma found a piece of paper slipped under her door. It was blank except for a single symbol, a circle with an eye at its center. The lines were jagged, as if drawn in a hurry. She crumpled it up and threw it away, but the symbol stayed in her mind, haunting her. That afternoon, she decided to investigate. She started with the abandoned house at the edge of town, a place she'd avoided for years. The house was a crumbling relic, its windows boarded up, its door hanging loosely on rusted hinges. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of mildew and decay. The walls were covered in symbols, the same eye she'd seen on the paper, drawn over and over in what looked like dried blood. In the corner of one room, she found a mirror. When she looked into it, she saw a figure standing behind her, a shadowy silhouette with hollow eyes. She spun around, but the room was empty. Emma's investigation led her to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. The building loomed in the distance, its windows shattered, its walls covered in graffiti. As she approached, she noticed something strange. The air grew colder, the silence heavier. Inside, the warehouse was a maze of rusted machinery and crumbling walls. The symbols were everywhere, etched into the metal and scrawled on the floor. And then she heard it, a whisper, faint but unmistakable. "You're getting too close." She turned and saw it, a figure standing in the shadows. It was tall, its face obscured by a hood, but its eyes glowed faintly in the dark. It stepped closer, its movements unnaturally smooth. "You shouldn't have come," it said, its voice a low, guttural growl. Emma ran, her heart pounding in her chest. The figure didn't follow, but she could feel its presence, like a weight pressing down on her. Back at her apartment, Emma tried to make sense of what she'd seen. She searched online for information about the symbols, the warehouse, the figure. What she found terrified her. The symbol of the eye was linked to an ancient cult that had once operated in the town. They believed in a being that watched from the shadows, a creature that fed on fear and paranoia. The cult had disappeared decades ago, but their influence lingered. That night, Emma had a dream. She was standing in the warehouse, surrounded by the symbols. The figure was there, its hood pulled back to reveal a face that wasn't human. Its skin was pale and cracked, its eyes black voids. It reached for her, its fingers long and twisted. "You're already mine," it whispered. Emma woke up screaming. The next morning, Emma found another note under her door. This time, it had an address, a place deep in the woods outside of town. She knew she shouldn't go, but she had to know the truth. The woods were dark and silent, the trees looming like sentinels. The address led her to a clearing where a circle of stones stood in the center. The symbols were carved into the stones, glowing faintly in the dim light. And then she saw it, the figure, standing in the center of the circle. Its hood was down, revealing its true form. It was tall and skeletal, its skin stretched tight over its bones. Its eyes were hollow, its mouth a jagged gash. "You've come," it said, its voice echoing in her mind. Emma tried to run, but her legs wouldn't move. The figure stepped closer, its hand reaching for her. "You're already mine." The last thing Emma saw was the symbol of the eye, burning bright in the darkness. Emma was never seen again. Her apartment was found empty, the walls covered in the same symbols she'd been investigating. The police closed the case, but the townspeople knew the truth. The watchers were real, and they were always watching.